very warm welcome to the second event of the Grand Chess Tour. This is Grandmaster Jan Gustafsson and International Master Anna Rudolph. We are here to take you through 4 days of action, rapid, blitz, everything spectacle. We are on location in Leuven, Belgium, in a historic building, the Town Hall of Leuven. So all that you can see around us is history. And the games have already begun. Jan, shall we start talking about the games actually?
Yeah, let's jump into the action without further ado. And as you do, we gotta start with the world champion Magnus Carlsen, who did not win the first event in Paris. Some would say he came close, some would say not that close. Had a meltdown on the last day. And a big reason that he wasn't in contention late on in that tournament was that he lost his very first round game to Wesley So, and we have the rematch between those two. There we can see Wesley on stage prefers a t-shirt for these rapid and blitz events because you want to be flexible and comfortable. What surprised me?
We saw that special in the blitz that they prefer wearing something short sleeve rather than having a suit on, but it seems like Magnus Carlsen is in his suit wearing the sponsor's shirt and a suit. I think he should watch out for the clock because if we can recall that he lost on time against Wesley So it wasn't the position that was problematic, but the clock.
Yeah, the time control for the rapid is 25 minutes and 10 seconds increment per move. So in general, you shouldn't lose on time because you get 10 seconds bonus per move. The players, however, sometimes they will forget about the clock. But let's see what's going on the board, because Magnus surprised at least me a little bit by employing the Najdorf defense, which I'm sure he's done once or twice.
Are we sure we are seeing his board and it's not Washier?
You never know, but I believe from what we can see on screen, there is a pawn on a6 in Magnus's game, so it looks very likely that he actually did play it, took a page out of, I'm not sure, Vashier's playbook. Of course, other arguably bigger names like Fischer and Kasparov have popularized this, but the world champion never been a big fan of the Najdorf. Bishop e3, Wesley So plays one of the main lines, a little less popular than it used to be because of knight g4 here, but Magnus plays very classically, e5, knight b3, bishop e6, f3, knight bd7, and this normally leads to quite sharp games. Black often invites a position with opposite castles, where white castles queenside and black castles kingside. I'm going to get my arrows straight later on. You'll get used to it. And yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Do you recall any games where Magnus played in Najdorf?
I have a goldfish's memory. I'm sure there have been some, but it hasn't been, his main opening, that's for sure. He normally prefers e4, e5, and he's played some Sveshnikovs, he's played some goofy things, but to see the Najdorf from him is a bit of a surprise. And we just saw him rushing in with his second, Peter Heine Nielsen, giving him some last-minute notes. So probably Peter Heine Nielsen reminded him of all the tricks. Play a6 first, don't go e5 immediately, because then bishop b5 check is very unpleasant.
That's important,
Stuff
guys.
of that nature.
That's important.
And another curious move on the board, it's a theoretical line, but
The
after
H5
long castles,
variation.
h5 might not be the first move that comes to mind. However, people have started doing that in all kinds of Sicilian positions, because in this crazy modern chess of our times, White wants to go g4 wherever he can, grab some space, potentially push this knight away, and he's fighting against it by playing h5. The drawback, of course, that you can't castle kingside so easily anymore, because there will be some holes around the king's position.
Yeah, but it's normal to keep the king in the center in this position, so he just stops the king side expanding, as you said, and the king will be fine on e8. Normally. We'll see. We'll see.
We'll find out. Looks like the world champion has come prepared. Let's do a brief tour through the other games we have in this round.
I agree.
We have the winner of the first leg of the Grand Chess Tour, Hikaru Nakamura.
He's in a very good shape and seems like he has already equalized against Kramnik. This position is not like the most dangerous of all.
I'm not so sure. It's a line that Kramnik himself faced in Paris with the black pieces. He managed to make a draw against, I believe, Anish Giri. But it's a tricky little line which looks innocuous enough. But there's some tough waters to navigate there. Kramnik himself played this against Nakamura in a tournament game as well, where he did get an advantage but failed to win the game. And it looks like he's come prepared with a fresh idea.
Yeah, he seems to be very relaxed walking around in the playing hall. We can see in the camera that he has just left the stage. Yeah, he is still in the book maybe for the next 10, 20 moves, and he's just completely fine.
I'm not sure how deep his analysis goes, and it also depends on the opponent. Let's see how booked up Hikaru is here. He's sitting there studying the position. Kramnik, slightly surprisingly for some, because he's a very, very old man. He's like 40 or something insane.
41 already.
41 even, yeah?
Yeah.
Wow.
Vishy is the oldest participant, and the youngest are Anish Giri and Wesley So.
Yeah, but in spite of his very old age, Kramnik is, I believe, the third highest rated rapid player in this field, behind Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura.
Exactly, and he is not about to be retired.
No, he had a bit of a meltdown in the Paris part of the Grand Chess Tour in the Blitz event, where he collapsed on the last day, lost like 6 in a row. And rapid, this guy is a force to be reckoned with for sure. So as for the position, it's a quiet little line, but white is counting on the fact that his bishop on g2 is more active than its black counterpart, putting some pressure on this diagonal. It's a line that, yeah, I play myself, I quite enjoy it, but I've tried to convince some slightly more ambitious friends of mine to look at this, and they say, nah, it's just
said it's
too boring.
Yeah, isn't it like the kind of position that's very solid, so you have like a tiny little edge, and you can push, but it's not for those who like dangerous positions, sharp positions.
Yeah, I believe the main thinking behind it is black can equalize on this line, but he has to do some
Very
reasonably
precise
boring
order.
homework to have the precise move order down. And in rapid, guys like to check the other guys if they've put in that time in this not so exciting position. Anyway, Nakamura does sensible things, takes on d4, bishop to b5, rook to c1, rook to c8. Toying with the idea of exchanging here, even though you have to be very careful after bc4 that you're not dropping the b7 pawn. And a4, Kramnik invites that. Nakamura says, nah, I was just kidding. I don't really want to take here because I am worried about their weakness. So he goes bishop a6 back.
He seems to be
trying to.
recalling the variation. He's looking up. You were mentioning in a previous broadcast that when players look up to the left, that means that they are recalling something, or that was to the right?
I don't know.
One is being creative and the other is trying to recall something?
I used to study these things when I was a professional gambler. Nowadays, I don't really know anymore. I believe if you look to the upper left, it's memory.
Trying to recall something, and to the upper right, being creative.
To the upper right is lying normally if you're bluffing. I'm trying to figure out myself.
So he's trying to recall it, he's not bluffing.
Now he's looking at the board, so maybe he did recall something. I've also been trying to recall stuff because I believe this very position might have been on the board in Giri against Kramnik in the last Grand Prix. But even though I've been looking up there for a while now, I don't have a clue. It's noisy in here. As you guys can tell, we have a live audience who really don't seem to care about chess. I believe there's a wedding going on in the Leuven Town Hall. So get used to it.
Is it? Is it how it's pronounced? Stadhuis? It's a beautiful building. It's a 15th century late Gothic style 3-story building, very impressive. So we are very lucky to be here for the Your Next Move Grand Chess Tour.
Yeah, Kramnik is cleaning his glasses, clearly not very concerned about the position, but is taking his time to see if Nakamura can remember how to react to e3, which I have a hunch is probably the first new move of the game. Did he react? He played b6.
Yeah, it's already on the board, b6.
Which, yeah, is a strange little move. I guess his idea is in some lines to put the bishop back to b7 and neutralize things on this diagonal. But you always gotta be very careful with the c6 square. Should the knight ever land here, you could end up in trouble.
It did surprise Vladimir, it seems.
And Kramnik says, you know, I've studied 8 moves in this position, but b6 is really not one of them, so I'm gonna have to start thinking early in the workday.
I think that's a pleasant task when your opponent makes a move that you haven't studied. It's because it's not among the best ones, so he doesn't mind having to think about a move that isn't the very best in the position.
I don't know, could be smart. We'll see how it goes. For now, yeah, Nakamura's looked very, very strong in the Paris part, so I'm not gonna bet against him, against anybody. Kramnik takes something on d5.
He took on d5, which slightly surprises me. I thought that's our powerful bishop that we didn't really want to swap for anything.
Yeah, it's a concrete game. I guess his point is if he takes d5, then he wants to go bishop takes f6. And after queen takes f6, queen takes
The pawn
d5,
drops
white
on
wins the
d5.
pawn. While g takes f6 might look tempting because of this little pin, but there is the...
king side is kind of horrible.
Yeah, and you have the solution, queen g4 check, king h8, rook to d1, when it looks like white is on top. Therefore, what I was wondering is why can't black recapture with the queen here? I'm assuming that the idea is still bishop takes f6.
And you think queen takes d1 intermediate move so that the pawn structure is not destroyed. And after g takes,
Yeah, it might be they think this endgame is a little something. Now knight to d6. If to take, rook takes. I don't know. I don't have the sophistication of a Kramnik in the endgame. To my mind, this looks fairly equal.
did I have time for rook d7 instead of knight d6? Or you will have enough counterplay?
I have the feeling that if you allow this, then it really should be nothing. Let's say b takes c. Any move, let's say a6, and then rook c6, rook c8. Just
Yeah, maybe it's nothing.
hard to believe white can put enough
I wanted
pressure
to go
here.
like rook d6, and if you push, I will create a possible. But anyway,
Yeah. Can try this, but normally these things tend to peter out. Rook c7, rook c8, and it's a draw. We'll keep you posted. For now, Kramnik seems to, yeah,
be confident about his position with bishop takes d5.
absolutely. We have MVL. MVL, I don't think we can call him a dark horse anymore. He's too strong. He's certainly one of the best blitz players in the world. Finished, did he finish third in the Paris part? I
He
believe
did finish third in the Paris leg, and had there been more rounds, maybe he would have finished second, because Magnus Carlsen's last day was not the very best of his life.
And he is facing Vishy Anand, who set out the first part because he was playing a different tournament in Lyon, but here he's coming in to replace the French local hero Laurent Fressinet, who played
That
in
was a nice
Paris.
pronunciation. You've been practicing.
I've had French for like 8 years in school. Je ne peux pas parler, but I can try to get the names half right.
Impressive. So here we have the Berlin. We've been missing it so long.
Good old anti-Berlin.
Bishop c5 line.
Yeah, this position has occurred literally hundreds of times in recent top-level practice. Guys don't know what to do in the Berlin endgame, or most of them don't like it. Maxime has tried actually to enter this recently, but not for rapid there. He says, you know what, Vishy, let's keep the queens on the board. I'm not going to let you play an endgame, which you know inside out. The problem is the top players know this position inside out as well. Knight bd2. I've talked ad nauseum about the possibilities here in earlier shows. a6 used to be the main line, but then guys figured out that maybe these lines where white just plays slowly, h3, rook e1, knight f1, these pawns can be a bit of a problem, and the trend has shifted to the move knight e7, which at first sight looks very strange, because you're giving up the center. After d4 you have to take. But they've decided they have enough counterplay. They want to go d5 or bishop g4, put pressure on the center. The theoretical discussions have been evolving around this line for a while now without any clear verdict or clear way to an advantage.
We've seen this position quite many times in the Paris leg as well, so it's really popular also in rapid.
All of this is theory. You gotta pick your poison, allowing bishop g4 or allowing d5, queen b3, d5, e5, knight d7, and Vishy plays, oh no, MVL plays a move which I believe his opponent himself introduced as a novelty against Veselin Topalov during the, I have to look to the upper left, I believe during the candidates tournament, because in this position they used to play a4 with a very primitive idea of going a5, but then black normally replies by going a5 himself, and now the queen has done her job on b3 and doesn't have anything better to do than clear the way for this knight to go to b3. So they've been playing queen d1 or queen e3 here, and Vishy's big innovation, which apparently inspired his opponent, was to go back with the queen to d1 instantly.
It looks a bit awkward if we don't know theory, and I'm surprised by this move because I don't play this variation. So what's the idea behind queen d1?
Well, you clear the b3 square for the knight. You want to get your pieces out, so you want to go knight b3 so this bishop can then move, and you're overprotecting the d4 pawn. You can't take on d4 because it runs into g4 with sort of a double attack by breaking this pin. And therefore Anand, who of course since he introduced this idea must know all about it, blitzes out rook to e8. In some lines you want to go c6, knight f8, but in general it's just a useful little waiting move. g4, bishop g6, and just after I explained, the idea was to go knight b3, MVL goes knight to f1.
But it's logical after g4 that you don't want to be moving your pieces towards the queen side, but rather the king side.
Absolutely, I'm not sure this is a new approach, this g4, knight f1. We've seen Maxime introduce all kinds of quite sharp ideas, also in Paris. He's not holding back just because it's a rapid tournament, but it looks like both players have been blitzing and they're familiar with it. Since we have a couple other games to attend to, I'll also blitz through a bunch of moves here. to my mind, it looks like black has solved his problems, frankly.
It's an interesting pawn structure. We have this isolated pawn on d4, and at the same time, he has expanded with h3, g4. But there's more space for white, and also, well, after bishop g5, he has captured on e8. All right, then bishop g5. So rook e1 is coming, and white still has the initiative.
Yes, point is knight e4, which looks tempting, can be met by rook e1 with an unpleasant pin.
Yeah, also at some point, knight f5 can be unpleasant for black.
Absolutely. I'm not 100% sure if the tactics work here for white. If you go, let's say, queen to f7 to break the pin, after knight takes, whatever, queen e4, queen takes a2, white would need to have something very fast. Structurally, black is fine, but it's possible that there is something, some h4, h5, some kingside attack. I'm not sure. Let's see what they're doing.
He has played knight f5, if I can see that, the camera.
Vishy didn't seem to like my knight e4 idea all that much. Started with queen f7, rook to e1, and went rook to f8, focusing on the f file instead of the e file. Makes a lot of sense, knight e4 is in the air, but MVL plays knight f5, blocking that f file temporarily.
And if now knight e4,
Yeah,
seems
that's
to
what I
be
was wondering.
critical.
Looks fairly logical. I don't know, maybe he doesn't want anything special. Maybe he wants to retreat his bishop and say, your knight on g6 is clumsy, and if it ever moves, I go knight e5. But frankly, I don't think black is in any particular trouble here. His pieces are good. You can use his bishop on c7 or on d8, should you need to. So I believe Vishy Anand, who's checked his line for the candidates, has shown a way to get a good game here. What else we got?
What about the Caruana Topalov game?
Oh, another anti-Berlin. I'm sure you
Exciting!
can't get enough of those, but it's a different line. Caruana goes bishop takes c6 instead of c3, which we just saw. Well, let's just fast forward to the current position. Bishop d6 is not the main move here, I believe. Putting the bishop here, or even taking here, followed by knight d7, is more popular. But Topalov chooses bishop d6. Caruana goes for this knight
I really
a5.
like these knight a5 moves. It's really annoying because you can never push the b pawn, and if you have to be like protecting the b7 pawn with the rook, that's pretty passive.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised, but I have to admit I lack expertise here as well, that you don't just take this knight and then go knight d7. But I believe Fabi has done his homework here. He's pretty well known to be very diligent about his openings and figured out a way to get a small edge. So Topalov, ever the fighter, keeps all the pieces on the board. Rook to e8, this might look a little strange, but it's a typical plan to improve this knight, put it on f8 and then g6, because it really doesn't have a lot of business on f6. So this happened. In the meantime, Caruana grabbed the light square bishop, and we have a typical situation for this line where white enjoys a slightly better structure, but black has solved getting his pieces out. And yeah, all these guys have lots and lots of practice in the structure. To my mind, it's too complicated, like I always feel it should be about equal. But let's see if Fabiano manages to grind something out here. It also has to be said that it's maybe not Veselin Topalov's type of position. He enjoys sharper positions, and this one is
That's
not
important to add, yeah.
the most exciting position on earth. And white does have, well, at least he has more flexibility with his pawn breaks, let's say. It's easier for him to prepare f4 down the stretch than for black to prepare f5. And it's also harder for black to get his queenside pawns rolling. So, tiny edge by Fabiano here, who seems to, want to play a quiet position against Veselin Topalov.
I think that's a good choice, especially as you mentioned, against Veselin's style, that he would prefer to have a more aggressive position. So he might want to go crazy in this position, but there's no way to do it. It's just too solid.
Yeah, you could jump to d4, targeting the c2 pawn, when I would guess Fabiano wants to castle queenside, which at least would make the position a little spicier. But I'm not sure if this knight d4, provoking this queenside castle, is really in his favor. I'll let Topalov figure it out and move on to the last game, Aronian Giri.
What was the opening here?
Looks like a Grunfeld. We don't get to see many of those
Yeah, I was
because
surprised that we see a new position in comparison to the Paris rounds.
Yeah, most guys try to avoid the Grunfeld, and often they even do it on the very first move by Levon Aronian. We've seen a lot of 1c4 recently, which makes it much harder for black to get the Grunfeld, because if he tries with a normal move order, then white goes e4, and it's very hard to get in d5. Therefore, maybe Anish was himself surprised that they're discussing this one. It's a branch of the, I don't know what you call this, anti-Grunfeld, where white has not committed to d4 yet, but still the same kind of structure. I've tried many moves here with mixed success. Queen b3, queen a4, h4, e4, lots of options. Levon goes with e4, knight takes c3, b takes c, bishop g7.
So we have this classical Grunfeld position.
Not yet. If he were to play d4 here, they would transpose d4, c5.
He did not play d4.
Top c5 forever, because black has the pretty obvious plan of going b6 followed by c5. But I guess Levon feels like including this bishop a3, b6 favors him in some lines. Let's see how it goes. d4, b6, bishop to c4, and a move that might look very strange at first sight, but it is rather typical. Knight to c6. Looks strange because you're blocking your own c-pawn, and we were just talking about c5 being the black idea.
Wants to play knight a5 first and then c5? Or?
Yeah, he wants to go here and then c5, exploiting the fact that the white bishop went to c4, which is a nice aggressive square if it's not challenged, but it can be challenged by the knight. And the knight, long or mid-term, is headed towards that c4 square if possible. So knight to a5, c5, get the bishop out and fight for the c4 square. It's a very typical plan.
What is the current position? They have made a couple of moves afterwards. Captured on c5.
Yeah, this is another key moment because it looks like c5 leads to an exchange of pawns, but that's normally not black's idea. If you take here, then after rook c1, white would be better developed and probably get a very serious initiative. I don't know, bishop somewhere. Could even contemplate c6. But even after c takes b, a takes b, I don't know. Bishop b5, you gotta be very careful with black because you are behind in development. Therefore, the idea that Giri plays is quite a typical one, but it's strange if you see it for the first time. He goes queen c7, does not worry about getting this pawn back, but he's willing to play after cb, which didn't happen, with the one pawn on b6 against the pawns.
File, and also knight c4 is coming.
Exactly, you control a lot of the queen side, you can get your bishop out, and typically this structure is not supposed to be a problem for black, even though he's a pawn down for quite a while. Therefore, not surprised that Aronian declines his gift, goes queen e2, still counting on developing quickly. Now Giri decides to recapture b takes c, queen e3, targeting this newfound weakness on c5. I have no clue if all of this is theory, but from the time spent, looks like Giri was surprised by this bishop a3 approach and had to take a while to navigate these complications, while Levon has played very quickly.
It's surprising to see Anish Giri out of the book because it feels like he knows everything.
He does know everything, but if people play slightly goofy lines like this bishop a3 against him, you can even catch even Anish Giri off guard. However, I'm not sure if Levon achieved any opening advantage. Bishop g4. The question is the c5 pawn really weaker than the c3 pawn? He didn't dare to take it immediately. I'm wondering why, actually. Probably bishop takes f3 bothered him. When you have to go gf. Now maybe even a move like bishop e5, targeting h2. When these holes on white's king side should
I wouldn't
compensate.
like to have this structure as white.
Therefore, he played rook fc1, covering the c3 pawn, which was hanging for a couple moves, and he's still able to recapture on f3 with the queen should he feel the need. I would guess Anish, no, he's done something else, so fortunately I didn't guess. Anish played rook fd8. I was going to say I would guess he protects his pawn now, but no need for it apparently. Rook fc8, little tactic, bishop c5, rook d3, queen d3, queen c5. So you can't do that, therefore Levon played the more pedestrian bishop back to f1. Rook ab8, and now he took. So we have to figure out why Anish played rook ab8 and not rook c8, for example, covering that pawn. Any ideas?
So in case of, well, I don't think the idea is queen takes c5, bishop takes, and then rook c8 because the e7 and the a7 pawns are also hanging.
Yeah. I'm also not quite sure what he's doing, frankly. Like, here it looks like white is in time to take on e7, then retreat to b4 if necessary.
Exactly, in some positions maybe you can even capture on c3 if his bishop takes and rook takes bishop b4. Maybe not here because there's rook takes f3, but sometimes this knight can be really hanging on a5.
Yeah, this doesn't seem to work. So what is his point? Does he have a point? Or did he just give up pawn? I'm not sure, like black's task is not hopeless if you do something slow like takes on rook b7, but it doesn't feel like this is the position you're opting for. So I'm a little confused, and I hope that Mr. Anish can show us his idea. He's taking a lot of time though thinking, so maybe he's missed something, and it looks like a bit of an unforced error, because assuming it is an error, because rook ab8 can't be the only move in this
He's
position.
about to move his d8 rook.
Where?
I think
dc8.
rook dc8 is on the board. That was the big idea. He must have missed something, because he was thinking for a while, even after queen takes c5. And he only has 7 minutes left on the clock.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe it's still hard for white to keep his extra pawn. I was gonna suggest this, but then I spotted that you can take here and here, which wins the material back. Even in this position, you could make a case for white being better, because he does have the two bishops. His knight is a little out of play. 7 is on priest. So it looks like Giri is under pressure. Where you want to go? We got 5 games.
I see everybody in the chat talking about Vishy's game, that he's going for a brilliancy prize, so maybe we should have a look at that game. What happened there in Vishy Anand's game?
How would you win a brilliancy prize like this?
Maybe in the chat people are not that objective.
But MVL played a move which, of course, I missed. Targeting the g7 pawn, which is hard to defend. Of course, you don't want to take this, because this is a bit of an unpleasant knight fork after
Shall we
gh6.
discuss Anish Giri's
knight h6.
outfit for a moment? Then we have the close-up of the players. And now we have the board, so maybe it was not the moment to criticize his watch.
There's going to be plenty of time to discuss his sartorial choices. But for now, let's discuss Vishy's king. Bishop h6.
It isn't Vishy who's going for the brilliancy prize, but Rashier.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Vishy blundered this bishop h6 idea. Then again, probably not, because he's a very, very sharp tactician. I certainly did. I thought black was fine. And then MVL went for this move. So Vishy decided to ignore it. You can't really cover the g7 pawn, so you have to do something.
It and you can capture the bishop. So he played queen c7?
Yeah, I guess his point is if you go bishop g7, then you go rook takes f5, g takes f, and knight to f4.
Important intermediate move, and then you capture on g7 with a check.
This would
And it's winning its mate, isn't it?
This would be very, very bad news for white, like wherever. Because you get checkmated on g2.
What if you capture on g7 with the knight?
Yeah, that's the question. It feels like black should have something, but I can't quite put my finger on it yet.
Can it be like knight f4, but maybe I was wondering if there will be a lot of pieces hanging. So if knight f4,
Yeah, takes, queen
and then
takes.
there are 2 knights hanging, you can play,
Five.
yeah, knight f5 might work.
But this position is still unclear.
Doesn't feel very safe. Even moves like bishop c7 could be annoying.
Yeah, bishop c7,
With the idea
I'm
of
not
knight
sure.
g5.
Maybe, but it feels like if white manages to
Yeah, I'm not in time.
exchange queens, he should be able to stabilize. So, not 100% sure. h5 I was thinking was the same problem, the queen
He
e3.
has taken on g7 with the knight, so we'll see what's Vishy's idea. He's a pawn down now, but white's king is pretty weak, so we will see if he can exploit that.
Yeah, Vishy blitz out some moves, so we don't have to do the thinking for you. What else is there?
Is it possible to capture on f2 and then queen h2? I'm just bluffing,
Yeah.
but I want to see if there's anything miracle. Miracle sacrifice, queen h2 and then queen h3.
Yeah, I was also wondering about this. I'm not sure if takes is forced, but let's say takes, check, king. I don't know.
Where are you going? Yeah, you only
Well,
have
if
king
here,
of
then there's
one.
this at the very least. So, doesn't look very tempting for white. And king to e3, queen h3. It's a
Why
mess,
did
knight
you
f5.
Why did you capture on h3? You can take on f3.
Oh, sorry, I meant on the other position. After queen h2 check, king e3. Queen h3, knight to f5, and
You can
it's
take on
chaos.
f5 in worst case, and the h6 bishop is hanging.
Yeah, but here it looks like white
not
was
enough.
stabilizing. g5 or king f2. White is still
yeah.
an exchange up once the
Yeah, the problem is that
settles.
this f3 knight is protecting a lot of important squares, the h2 square, h4 square, and also the d4 pawn. So
It looks like he did
might-
take on f2,
yeah,
so
he
we're
took
actually going
on
to see this.
f2, queen h2 check, and king e3 is on the board. He might go for the brilliancy prize. Do we have one?
I have no idea. I didn't see any announcements of brilliancy prizes. And normally, if you want to get the brilliancy prize, you don't choose the Berlin. But even in the Berlin, it can lead to very exciting games, as we can see here. King e3. Is there anything but queen takes h3? I can't really see anything. No,
yeah, you
this
were
seems
saying queen
forced.
takes h3 and knight f5 as a defense for white.
Yeah.
But then there are sorts of like rook e8.
It is a mess.
Now I
Even a
I
little
should
check here.
have something. Yeah, for instance. And if you go to f2, then
Yeah, it looks nice for black, but as we learned in school, the knight is the best friend of the king, and there's not an f3. Parries all the checks the black queen could give for the moment. So I'm not 100% sure what his point is after knight f5. I mean, you can take, but as mentioned, this position didn't look all that appealing to me, because now white's king is safe, and looks like there's trouble looming along
this
these.
seems to be the game of the round. That all the other players are walking to that board, checking out how is Vishy doing after the sacrifice on f2. But he must have something if he sacrificed so quickly. He took on f2 after a minute or two.
Yeah, but what is it? Hikaru Nakamura is not impressed, but he's probably too bored by his game against Vladimir Kramnik and says, you know what, I'll draw against Kramnik. We have a rook endgame with equal pawns and pieces. Rook endgames normally have equal pieces, equal pawns. Therefore, let's check out how Vishy is doing. Vishy is calculating after king e3. What could he come up with? Maybe.
It's strange that he started calculating now, because he must have foreseen this move and he must have considered it the main line. King f1 was just very bad.
Yeah.
So
Knight f4, you just take the queen, so that doesn't really help us all that much. It's too deep for me. Queen h3, knight f5.
do you think he missed something?
I don't know. It's strange to go for the sequence and now sink into deep thought. But maybe he's just double checking what he's seen well in advance. I'm not sure. What's the clock situation? He has like 9 minutes left. MVL has 14.
Yes.
MVL looks, you can never tell. He normally looks more or less the same, but he doesn't look unduly worried, I would say. Clock strikes. What time is it? 2:45.
Why does it strike in Leuven? 2:45. Must be the wedding, though.
I don't know. I believe this annoying clock next to where I live also strikes at every quarter hour. It's like my personal
Really?
snooze, like I'm trying to sleep there. Yeah, I know, it's 7:30 and 7:45.
You mean in Hamburg?
Exactly. I still can't see it. Queen h3 looks like the only sensible move to me.
We are puzzled by Vishianen's position. He has sacrificed on f2. Well, he has foreseen probably the whole line with bishop h6 and he planned queen c7, or you think that he missed bishop h6? It's just a matter of if he had seen this position and he thought he would have something here.
He's played queen g2. Maybe that's gonna
Queen g2.
answer all our questions, or maybe not.
What is the point if knight f5?
No idea. Probably
Okay,
it's rook e8.
Rook e8, and there's no king f2 anymore. So, yeah,
this would
that's a
be
good point.
Very bad news.
And mate.
That's a clever little move.
So he's threatening to capture on f3, and the knight cannot move away from g7 because of rook e8 mate.
Pretty much. So you have to defend the knight. Queen f1 or rook f1 are the first moves that come to mind.
Yeah, queen f1 seems to be nice, but maybe then queen takes b2 and you are coming from the other flank.
Yeah, it's a bit passive. And maybe
Yeah.
Vishy judges that here he has enough, even long-term play.
So I thought maybe then queen e2 and I don't allow you swing to the other flank. Instead of queen f1, if I go queen e2. But maybe then he wants to take on h3. And the difference is that now, after knight f5, the queen will be hanging on e2, so I will always have this rook e8 check.
Could be.
But that would be very nice if this is such a precise order that now he captures on h3 and the position might be winning.
In MVL, yeah, his body language has changed a bit. Probably just like us, at least he also missed this queen to g2 move. And now he's facing real problems.
If this works, then it is really a brilliant game by Vishy Anand.
His other moves, rook to f1, but all of a sudden white has many options and none look all that clear cut. But maybe you have to go for this, even though it's a bit passive. Even I'm sure I'm blundering pieces left and right, but for now I'll resist the temptation to switch on the computer. It's gonna last another
Maybe
like
we can go knight
2 minutes.
Knight h4, or there must be other moves too, I guess.
Always other moves. Yeah, I don't know. Knight h4 is certainly a move. Knight f5, rook e8 check. Let me send MVL's king on a little trip.
Knight g6. Oh no, wait. Maybe I should have played bishop c7 first. That must be a mate. I don't believe this position is not a mate.
Who knows?
Bishop d8.
Yeah, the
King h5, queen h3.
journey
I think
might
we
come
managed
to
that.
an
Maybe after rook
unexpected
e8
ending.
you had. No, you didn't have. No. No, this just looks pretty bad with the king on e3 and the queen cutting the king from g2. So queen g2 is a brilliant move.
Still looking for tricks, but no, I got nothing. Knight g5 looks like queen g3 check. It's a bit of a problem. Yeah, it is. So, Maxi Boy looks surprised, taking his time here. And we can't call Vishy the tiger from Madras anymore, right? Because the city is called Chennai now. And I haven't heard people call him the tiger from Chennai. So we need a new nickname for Vishy. He's also inscrutable. I can't read Vishy's face. Oh, but there he's giving him the stare down. Maybe he's...
People are saying that this is his lucky shirt.
Is it?
I don't know. That's according to our audience on Chess24. That this is Vishy's lucky shirt. He's wearing the lucky shirt and he's playing a brilliant game.
I don't like this one. He has another one which I like much better.
Which one do you like more?
He has a blue checkered shirt, which I'm a big fan of, actually.
I think he's just matching his outfit to the atmosphere. If you see those red chairs and the walls, he really thought about how the town hall will look like.
Yeah, we've seen him yesterday with his stylist going through the premises. Like, which color do you think goes with this?
With this late Gothic
this
style
location.
building.
I don't know. Like, obviously, all the disclaimers you want, we could be missing something big. But for now, it looks like Vishy Anand is putting pressure on MVL with the piece sacrifice.
We see Wesley So against Magnus Carlsen, so I think we should have a look at that game. What happened here? All the pieces are missing already. So yeah, we kind of missed the middle game.
Yeah, I'm still busy counting the pawns. I was going to say it's a standard structure, but that always sounds dumb if you miscount the pawns. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 versus 6. That means equal pawns, and that should mean that black is totally fine, I would guess. To g6, his pawn on g4 does a useful job opening the h-file, restricting the h2 pawn, so that's a bit of a target. Knight can jump to e5.
Exactly, that's a very nice location for the knight, and also the d5 pawn can be a weakness in many positions.
Yeah, still, I'm not sure if white is worse, actually. If you, let's say, go knight c6 to stop this knight from jumping in here, Then you want to kick it away with b3. Play something like rook to d4. My best guess would be it's roughly balanced. Still, say king g7, just to make a move, b3, like b6. Problem for white is that knight takes d5 is a threat, so it might not
It's
be so
always
easy
in the air, so you can't keep your knight on c6.
to stabilize here. I don't know, my gut feeling is that it's
Magnus
roughly
is
equal.
doing fine.
But yeah, my gut is not all that smart, so don't listen to him. This position, yeah, I had briefly mentioned earlier, looked like a draw to me.
So they did enter the line we were discussing with rook d7, capture on c4, and then creating, well, in a different way, but they reached the same position.
Yeah, pretty much. And normally in these positions, the passed pawns get exchanged for each other sooner or later, and you shake hands because you are left with 4 against 4 versus 4 versus 4 on one flank. Tough sentence. But yeah, this should peter out. There is also the saying, however, that Kramnik's passed pawn's always queen. And
Really?
yeah, you got to be very careful giving this Kramnik dude a passed pawn. He's very good at like sneakily
Converting
pushing them.
slight edge in the end game.
Yeah, so let's see how he goes about it here. He goes rook b7. Ah no, it's black to move. Rook a8. Small surprise though. I'm not sure what bothered him.
After
Or rook
rook
c6.
c6, which would have been more natural, at least to us.
Rook b7, yeah. And
Yeah, so we
We lose
blundered
the
our
pawn.
pawn. Yeah, maybe that's why
Even
he
s-
did not go rook c6.
even such a position tends to be tenable, but okay, you don't want to
There
give
was
that
no
pawn for
need
free.
to give it up this easily. So now if rook b7, he wants to go rook b8.
Then happens c6. At least you can't take now, because here this would be a bit of a problem after rook b8. Therefore, Hikaru does the sensible thing. He pushes his own passed pawn, and he wants to use it as a decoy to exchange it for the c6 pawn in order to shake hands. Let's see if Kramnik can stop that.
Is this the current position? Or have
I
they
believe this is
played
what
a
they
few
have
more
here.
moves?
b3, king g2, and after b2, his point is most probably rook to b4. When this would be a mistake because this rook does a pretty good job.
Yeah, you have to go rook b8 and then rook takes b2 and that endgame is winning.
So instead, I guess he wants to go here, and then c7, and I wasn't sure if we're in time to get a hold of this c pawn. Maybe not. Also doesn't seem to be time to support his own pawn because there's always
There's
rook
always
b8.
rook b8. Does he have time for king g7 there and then trying to activate the rook, or that's way too much time?
Which
Just
position?
the last position you were discussing when you played rook a2. But yeah.
Oh, here.
No, but our
Yeah,
pawn-
but you just take and go rook c2.
Yeah.
With the pawn on c7, it
Yeah,
feels
it's
like an
a
uphill
pity for
struggle.
black that the king is on g2 and there's no check and rook c1. So yeah, he has to lose another tempo trying to activate the rook.
So let's try to do better than that. And Hikaru has done so. He's played king to
F-
g7 immediately instead of b2, which would have been too cooperative.
King g7 and now
And I guess that makes a difference in one of those lines. After here, c7, now you have time to go.
they will exchange
Rook
pawns.
somewhere.
Rook takes b3 and rook c1. So this is going to be a drawn rook endgame.
Yeah, Kramnik tried something else. He went rook g4 check, forcing the king back to the back rank where it doesn't want to be. King f8 and rook a4. Sneaky.
This might be very clever because the king on the back rank, there's always this idea of rook a4 and then c7. Now what can you do with the rooks?
I don't know. This looks like a very, very tricky move. 'Cause, yeah, takes doesn't seem to work. Rook takes
He
b8.
has played king g7, so of course he would love to repeat moves with rook g4, rook a4, but we are afraid that there must be a better move here.
Well, why
He's
can
for
just take the
Hikaru.
pawn? Takes and
Yeah,
take here.
He has taken on a8, rook takes b3, and this should be winning, shouldn't it?
I have no clue, but it's certainly chances. Hikaru's shaking his head. And
Yeah.
let's say,
Seems like Vladimir Kramnik manages to squeeze out more of the tiny advantage he had in the rook endgame.
The problem is, I would guess, I'm not sure, I might mess up the order, but if black tries to grab this pawn, that white normally wins the pawn endgame. Like, okay, this is a sample line.
Yeah, you never have time to go for the c pawn because the white king enters the king side and will grab all your pawns.
No, it looks like Kramnik, even his posture has improved. He's sitting straight up. I
That
shouldn't
means
do
that
so.
he's
I'll
winning.
maintain this. And yeah, Hikaru is shaking his head. He's missed his rook a4 move.
He went rook c8, rook c3 is on the board, and this just seems to be the typical endgame that Vladimir Kramnik wins 10 out of 10.
Yeah, this doesn't seem to be particularly hard because you just bring your king towards.
True, it was more
The king
difficult
side.
to achieve this position, and he did quite easily actually. The rook endgame we thought that will be drawn after the c and b pawns would be swapped. He just managed to keep his one on the board. This rook g4, rook a4 was very precise.
Yeah, we can see Hikaru's not happy and it's
Not
probably
at
too
all.
late for a Red Bull injection. He might save that for the next game.
The winner of the Paris Grand Chess Tour is suffering in the first round of your next move Grand Chess Tour. So, of course, there are many rounds, 9 rounds of rapid chess and 18 rounds of blitz. So he will have plenty of time to recover, but it seems that Hikaru Nakamura is losing his first game here in Leuven, Belgium.
It's down to 2 minutes as well, but yeah, it doesn't really matter. This is just lost. You have a fighting chance in such rook endgames if your rook is behind the pawn and white has to defend his pawn passively. But here, with his own rook behind it, there's just very little you can do because the king will always find a way to infiltrate the black structure. So, yeah, to my mind, it is pretty resignable. And Hikaru, he's gonna look at what happened to his position for a while. But this
What
game won't last long.
about Vish's position? Has it changed after we last looked at it? After Queen G2?
It has changed indeed, and Vishy
Wow!
won his game.
He has won already. We might have Vishy Anand soon here in the commentary booth. We are hoping to see Vishy Anand explaining his beautiful victory against Maxime Vachier. What was the last move?
I don't know.
Queen
Queen
E2.
E2, Vishy played even more directly than we thought. I think
Yeah,
we
we
looked at
thought
this.
he would play queen takes h3, but rook takes f3 and bishop takes d4 wins the queen. Brilliant game by Vishy Anand, and we hope to have him soon here joining us.
Don't get your hopes up.
He must be coming, he must be on the way. Simply that we are one floor downer than the playing hall, so we need some time for Vishy Anand to make his way down here to the first floor of the town hall of Leuven.
So yeah, the rest was agony. Black is a queen up against a rook and a bishop and has more pawns. And to add insult to injury, white is also getting checkmated after queen d5 checkmate. So very nice game by Vishy Anand, and looks like the key move was this move, queen to g2, which
Exactly,
MVL
we
must have missed from
completely
afar.
missed. And Maxime seems like he was with the black pieces.
Yeah, the oldest participant saying, you guys might have forgotten about me in Paris, but here I am, back and as dangerous as ever. Vishy
Yeah,
Anand.
Vishy Anand, let's not forget, he used to be the best in the world in rapid chess. So, as a former world champion and #1 in rapid and blitz, he is still there, even at the age of, how old is he, 46? What is that?
I don't know, I tend to get very angry tweets whenever I get Vishy's age wrong, so I don't even want to guess.
So Vishy Anand scores the first victory here in Leuven, and also we might see Vladimir Kramnik joining him soon.
Yeah,
happened
the old
to-
guard putting up a fight here.
Yes, seems like the old ones have the most energy, at least at the beginning. But let's not call them old. They are not really old. They are just, in comparison with the rest of the participants, they are somewhat older.
They're very old. Let's see how Magnus is doing against Wesley So.
Another rook end game, but I don't like this position that much anymore. I used to like black's position more.
He threatened mate in 1, which is always a good starting point by going rook a7, planning rook h1 check, rook a1 checkmate.
Yeah, but after king b1, he doesn't have rook to another open file. So it's the a file, and the rest of the files are occupied.
Is Magnus in trouble? Feels like it a bit.
Yeah, this d-pass pawn will be very strong, supported by the d4 rook, and the e rook cuts the king, so that there's no such thing as king f7, king e7, king d7 very quickly, blocking the pawn.
Yeah, I can't see anything, because if you go for wherever, there's not even counterplay. The king just hides on b3 while you push the d pawn. So it looks like, yeah, either we were a little too optimistic about his position here,
We
or
did like his
something went wrong.
position a lot. What happened afterwards? a4.
He's decided to simplify with knight e5, which looks a bit like desperation. Not sure if that was necessary. But after f5, there is a bit of a problem with the e6 square.
And the d6 pawn is too weak, so he will have to.
And we have the organizer himself here, like giving us instructions, talk about the actual games.
And he might want to join us soon, I hope.
We'll find out. Yeah, and all of this looks kind of unpleasant as well for black with his weak king. So probably we were a bit unkind to Wesley's chances in the game. And
Yeah, maybe that when we see a promising position, we just assume that Magnus will get something out of it, but maybe his position is not as good as we evaluated it to be.
it's the benefit of the doubt the world champion gets. Whenever we don't get a position, he's doing fine. And he's played rook h3, trying to generate some counterplay here. Is that fast enough though? If you go
Yeah, after
d6.
d6, he will have to go rook d7, I believe. If not, this pawn is promoting, or you have a trick, king f6. Yeah, I have to lose a tempo by moving the rook somewhere. I would like to keep it on the e file. And then I'm threatening d7.
Yeah, it looks fairly unpleasant still. But no immediate breakthrough.
Yeah, king f7 is a very clever move, because if you do the same without king f6, then of course there might be something. After rook d7, I was wondering, well, first of all, the b5 pawn is hanging too, if we want to grab it. And yeah.
It looks like Magnus did not embark on my very clever move, but instead went rook d7.
Is
Anyway.
that possible? I really liked your move. I thought it was better. But maybe after king f6, he would have... The rook was on a7 before?
Yes.
So rook b5 he was just afraid of? Maybe?
Yeah,
And you
sooner or
have to
later
go
you
rook
have to go
d7
here, and this
anyway.
doesn't run away, so don't mind it. Yeah, it could be that transposes rook e3. He wants to go king f6. You could also
But
think
do you
about
have to
this.
come back?
but
Don't you have time for rook c5, rook c7?
Maybe.
I would really love to promote that pawn, so I'm trying to get there. But yeah, you will protect it with the king.
Yeah, still
No.
not so easy.
Still too close. The king from g7 will get to e6, so I cannot do it. And after this, you will grab the pawn on g3. Maybe rook e3 is then the clever move. You're right.
Yeah. No
But
real clue what's going on, frankly.
Maybe can he play for g5, f4?
Can certainly try.
Will I need to protect the rook?
Yeah, the question is also,
He did go rook e3, king f6 is on the board, so it's actually a transposition to what you analyzed before. And king c2, I believe.
makes sense. White wants to use his king for active purposes. Black has to go for some sort of counterplay connected to g5 and f4. I'm not
Yeah,
sure
we
how
believe
much
he
of
will
a threat
play
it is.
g5, threatening f4.
He could go king d3, but it feels like going the wrong way somehow, because the king can't really get much done from over
It
here.
does prevent f4. g5 is on the board, and now Vasilisa will have to deal with the threat of f4. So
Yeah.
this unprotected rook on e3 allows f4. That's why we wanted to try king d3, but in that case we cannot go for the b5 pawn with the king.
Yeah, I'm still busy counting pawns. Like, that's the amount of rook ending. Understanding I have pawns are equal, this pawn is not queening anytime soon. So looks like Magnus either was in trouble or found his way out of it, but expect this assessment to change every 3 minutes, because we're gonna go to a different game first, where Vladimir
Vladimir
Kramnik
Kramnik against Hikaru
is
Nakamura.
wrapping up.
And Nakamura is down 25 seconds.
Doesn't matter, the position is just totally hopeless. He
I just
can't-
wanted to make it more exciting. He's losing on time. Not yet, but the position is lost.
He might choose to lose on time, that we see his clock running out, 7-6.
5 increments of
played king
10
f5.
seconds.
The problem is black can never move anything. If white just goes h3, as Kramnik, I think he's going to go h4, same
He
story.
has resigned. Hikaru Nakamura, the winner of the Paris Grand Chess Tour, has just resigned against Vladimir Kramnik. Now they are discussing the game, and we hope to have one of them here in the commentary booth. And also we are waiting for Vishy Anand to join us.
I'm not so sure the players will be that eager to join us in the breaks, but of course they're always welcome here. We shall find out after h4. It is a Zugzwang. You can't move the rook anywhere because the pawn promotes, and the king would have to go back. And after king g6, king e4, there's really no reason for further resistance. Let's say king f7. Well, anything wins. King f5, king e7, king g6. And sooner or later, you have to make a go for the c-pawn, but then you just lose the pawn endgame because the white king has penetrated into the heart of black's position.
So what do we have left, actually?
We have Magnus's rook endgame, which we don't understand. We have Vishy's brilliant victory. So the other two ongoing games are Caruana Topalov, which we've more or less ignored. We've seen this slightly dull structure out of the opening. It changed a bit when Topalov took on e3 and Caruana decided to recapture, not with the bishop, but with the pawn, which, yeah, to my mind, looks fairly equal still. Actually looks like Topalov made more progress than Caruana.
Yeah, targeting the d3 backward pawn. And we will have Vishy Anand joining us in the commentary booth, talking about his brilliant victory with the black pieces in the Berlin defense.
There he is. You just kept announcing him and he shows up. I didn't know it was that easy.
I told you he would come, I told you.
And how do we do this?
I think we should bring up the brilliant game of Vishy Anand and let him explain what happened on the board.
Vishy, welcome. Can people actually see Vishy? And let's see if they can hear him too. What happened there? Queen g2 and you're winning?
I mean, it's a toss-up between rook f3, which I thought is promising. Which
Shall
I
we
now
put
know
it on
to
the
be slightly
board,
better for
so-
black. And queen g2, but queen g2 just seems strong to me. I thought null lines because I play bishop d4 at the end. I'm going to be a few pawns up or something. And obviously it was nice to play rook f1, knight e5.
And rook f1, knight e5. Ah, we missed that one too.
Yeah, we
Directly?
did miss it.
Or what are we talking about?
No, that would have been the line because Maxime played queen e2 and after rook f4.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, so rook f1, knight e5 was the idea, sort of.
If takes just for
Well, rook f1 and it resigns next move.
checkmate. Yeah?
It's mate or the queen or something.
Ah, that's very cute.
So when did you realize about this queen g2?
Well, quite early because when I played queen f7 and rook f8, I was looking at
we
those
saw that,
ideas.
but we didn't understand if
I
we
mean, it's
missed
not like I had
something or-
everything worked out, but I saw the basic pattern. The problem for me was what got me at some point was queen b3 instead of knight takes g7. At some point I saw that and I had to reassure myself that I'm not worse. The queen's on d3 actually. No, queen b3.
Ah, queen b3, I'm sorry.
Yeah, with the idea to
Trying
play
to
rook
figure
takes
out.
e4. And the problem is if I go rook f7, which looks nice, then you can still play rook takes e4, d4, knight g5, and
Oh.
you know, it's kind of, it may work, it may not, I don't know. But I was probably going to either take on f2 or take on h6 and play h5, and it's playable.
Were you surprised that he stole your idea? If I recall correctly, like